Joseph Timmons here with IndiePulse Music Magazine. Yet again, another Zoom interview. And I have a gentleman from a very interesting company. I'm probably going to mispronounce the name because, I'm from New York. Audeze. Did I get it right?
Yes, that's actually correct. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we
On a
actually
roll.
get the Audeze, I think, is what we most commonly get the first time. So
Batting 1,000. Okay. And they produce headphones and other equipment for audio processing, audio engineering, and of course, listening to music. They've got a line of products out that we think that you as professional musicians or music lovers would actually enjoy using. I've looked at the website, looked at the price points, quite affordable and high quality products. So I'll let my guest introduce himself because he is suave and debonair. Yes. All right.
yes, my name is Jaren. I'm the head of marketing for Audeze Headphones. I've been with the company now for going on 4 years. 4 years come February. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to start from customer support and learn about all the products that way, and just sort of work my way through. And now here I am.
All right. Now, we were talking a little bit before we got on camera, and he told me about a couple of products that we're going to start out with, and I believe it's the LCD1 and the LCD-X.
Yes, that's correct. So LCD1 we launched in late 2019, so it's the newer of those two. And we really wanted to target that towards the kind of at-home producer kind of market. It's definitely one of the most accessibly priced headphones that we have at $399. And it's really just, it's a planar magnetic headphone, as all of our headphones are. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about as far as the benefits of that technology to audio production. But beyond that, very lightweight, low impedance, so it can be driven pretty much off of any system whatsoever, and very neutral frequency response and highly detailed as well. So in terms of detail retrieval or dynamic range and sonic accuracy, LCD1s, yeah, it's good, hard pressed, I think, to perform better than those at this price point. LCD-X, we've had for much longer than that. Actually, that was the headphone, I think, that originally got us our reputation among musicians and audio engineers. They sort of discovered it and realized how great it was for that application. It sort of took on a life of its own from there, and we've kind of just grown since then.
Now, what sort of feedback have you been getting from the people that have purchased and used these products?
Oh, I mean, the feedback's always been positive. We have a really loyal and wonderful group of customers who've been with us really since the very beginning. We started as an audiophile company. So before we got into gaming and pro audio and all that stuff, we were just attending the hi-fi shows, can jams and stuff like that. And we launched the LCD2 to start. And I think that's really where our reputation started. And really from the first product on, people have loved our product. So again, that's the hi-fi listening realm. From the pro audio side of things, I mean, we've had some really big names, some people up in Metropolis Studios in the UK. I think I have to get their names for you, but I'll name drop in a second once I look up all their specific names. But but basically, we've had some really big producers who previously never would mix on headphones. I mean, just for a variety of reasons, but I think it was sort of a faux pas, or at least it used to be. And then they heard ours, and for the first time, they would actually use headphones as a tool in their mixing or their mastering process, because the detail retrieval is just so accurate that they actually found it to be a valuable tool for that reason. So, yeah.
One thing I've run into, because I've done product reviews. Hopefully, I can get one of your products to do a review for. But put on my thinking cap. Okay. One problem that I've run into with a lot of companies, big name companies that put out stuff that they say it's for pro audio, they put in features like, noise reduction, or, this to deaden sound, or that to get rid of outside sound, but they wind up deadening some of the sound that's coming through. And like you just said, a lot of producers don't use headphones. Me, I actually like using headphones when I'm mixing down tracks, because I can hear some of the subtle nuances that might get thrown off by people driving past, or one of my kids running in going, "Hey dad, this." So from what I understand, your product doesn't have that problem. It doesn't deaden sound, it does not blank out sound, you don't lose frequencies. So can you speak to that a little bit for us?
Yeah, certainly. So when we start to talk about the technology and the sonic benefits from it, it can get real technical really, really fast. But ultimately, our goal has always been to provide as true to the source sound as possible. So we're not about coloration based on trends or anything like that. We don't artificially boost frequencies because we think people want more bass or this or that. It's just a pure neutral sound. The goal being to make it sound like you're in the room with the musicians.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a number of reasons why we're able to achieve that, but I think the better way to look at it would just be to say that we do our own R&D. We, have a lot of our own patents, things on like fluxor magnets and our phaser waveguides, our Uniforce voice coils. A lot of our processes for creating these headphones, we actually developed ourselves and earned patents on. And those have allowed us to really become experts in this technology. And our head of engineering has actually been working with this stuff for decades, even before Audeze started, with various applications. So he's really been able to, well, he and the entire engineering team and production team have really been able to get this down to a perfect science, to the point where we're able to produce these drivers with a great deal of accuracy and speed and tolerance level and stuff like that are fantastic. And yeah, so I don't know where to start, I guess, as far as the specific technology, but some really cool things about our headphones. So the transient response, that's going to be a big one. Really, really fast transient response. Our diaphragms are actually thinner than a human hair. We measure them in microns, so extremely thin. And our magnet structure, which we create, fluxor, I mentioned a bit earlier, able to generate a lot of power. It's basically, we sort of increase the flux generated on one side of the magnet versus the other. So you're able to get more magnetic force directed towards the diaphragm without increasing the number of magnets. And it's almost
It sounds like you got a lot of equipment packed into a tight space. What's the weight on the headphones? I mean, I would assume that they're, from what you're saying, they have a lot of equipment in there. But from what I see when I look at the pictures and from some of the research I've done on the product, they're very lightweight. They're very comfortable.
Yeah, so it's going to vary from headphone to headphone based on, how many magnets are in there. Do we use wood? What the headband construction is. I think some of our more heavy headphones tend to run in the 600-gram range, as opposed to LCD1, which is one of our lighter ones. I think it's, 250 grams for that. So yeah, it definitely runs the gamut. But LCD1s, if you're looking for something that's lightweight, definitely the one to go with.
Well, it's like I remember coming up when I was younger, when you buy a pair of headphones, you got these, big things that sort of make you look like Princess Leia. These right here. And then, of course, everything shrank down, the little things you get with the Sony Walkman and the things you plug in the ear. But when you get smaller, you start to lose what you're actually there for, which is hearing that pure sound that you were just talking about. So a lot of the better equipment actually keeps that in mind. They're the over the ears rather than the inner ears, unless they're the inner monitors. But I mean, going from the technology aspect, you can get lost really fast. And I would assume, and of course, that's where I get myself into trouble, I would assume that you've taken all this into thought to develop your product to be, comfortable, highest quality, best sound. I mean, you just said you do your own R&D. I mean, do you wind up doing polls with users or, find out what the market is bearing? I mean, how do you come up with your concepts? No trade secrets.
Yeah, I mean, as far as coming up with our concepts, I'm not the best person to speak to that because, of course, I'm not, our CTO or our CEO. But what I will say on that side of things is that we just have a lot of really creative and passionate people who work there. And so they're constantly coming out with new ideas for products. And yes, some of that is based on feedback that we've received from, listeners, especially when it comes to tweaks that we make in like the aesthetics or the headband design, the ear pads that we use, and comfort, things like that. I mean, we regularly communicate with our customers through our support staff. I think is one of the primary ways that we do that on a daily basis. We have real people on our support staff working really hard all the time, answering questions manually and taking phone calls. And we often get people just writing to us with other questions about how the headphones work, or even suggestions, right? Like, hey, I think it would be better if you did this. And we read all of those things, and all that information gets relayed up the chain. And we all talk on a daily basis as a team and go over those things. So
it sounds like you really listen to your people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's very important to us. We're still a small company. I mean, we've gotten a lot of awareness and people know who we are, and we're getting bigger in that way. But at our core, we are still very much a small company. And that means that as a small company, we have a philosophy, which is that we just really value our customers. We're nothing without them. And, we started from word of mouth. We started by going to these small hi-fi shows and just getting to know people face to face. And that same philosophy has carried us through to today. So even though we're doing some other more, large consumer products, we still have that core focus on our customers.
Now, that brings me to a question. A lot of people in the industry are aware of NAM. With COVID, we didn't have NAM this year, and trade shows are at a minimum is existing at all. How has that affected your ability to reach out and get the word out? I mean, obviously you have followers and fans and users of your product, but looking at it from the market aspect, I mean, it must be difficult to, really reach out and get the name out.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in the same boat, right? Everybody in this industry is dealing with those issues. I think our approach has been to just produce more content, quite frankly. So we're really trying to be more proactive on that side of things. We have a new content manager now who's been a great help in that respect. So it's gotten to the point where we're releasing videos quite regularly. We're doing, I think he calls them like hi-fi hangs, I think is the name of that series, where we're able to basically just get on Zoom calls just like this and chat with people from like Chord Audio and different people in the audio industry that are friends of ours that we work with, and just sort of kind of simulate that kind of casual environment that you might get at a trade show, but of course, on a YouTube video. So it is fortunate that, we do live in the age of the internet where we have access to these really powerful tools for creating content and distributing that content in a really massive scale. So, between that and our email list, of course, is a great way to stay in touch with us. And we're going to start soon, actually, engaging that more frequently with a bi-weekly newsletter where we promote our content more aggressively as well. So all those types of things. We have a bi-weekly Twitch stream as one example. So for our gaming, and even music producers that are on that channel, it's a great opportunity for them to come and just talk to me, or usually Grover is the one, sometimes both of us, who'll be streaming, and they can just ask us questions during the stream and we answer everything that we can. And yeah, so I guess a short version here is just by producing content and trying our best to engage people online.
Now, since you mentioned producing content, in order to kind of rewind back to what we talked about earlier, you said you had a blog connected to your site. Is this a location where people can find out more about your product lines?
Absolutely. So the blog is pretty robust at this point. We've got kind of a wide variety of content there, but if you go to our website, audeze.com, there's a Discover Audeze section up at the top. And you'll see a lot of different categories: audiophile, pro audio, gaming, technology, and then discover more. So all of those different categories have a different variety of content. And we have a lot of reviews posted on there, which will basically just be some pull quotes and links to the actual outlets so that you can find reviews on all of our products. Same thing with videos. And then there's the more creative side of that content. So we've got a podcast that we started a long time ago that we're going to refresh, I think, soon. And then we've got our Audeze artist page, which I think is the thing that I'm most excited about. And so that is basically a collection of interviews that we've done with artists that we work with, and we talk about those, and those are available to read anytime.
What? You want to say hi? You want to talk? My cat.
I have two cats, and they're also whiners, so I get it.
Hello.
What's the cat's name?
His name's Dusty.
Dusty.
Little story about that. Found him when he was a kitten, stuffed under a Coke machine. He was trapped under there, and I had to lift him up while someone else was getting him out. And he was a mess. I mean, he was literally near death. Took him to a vet. Vet's like, so are we putting him down? And I was like, no. It's going to cost a lot of money. I'm like, so? And here he is, 7 years later.
That's awesome.
But back to the subject. You see, I can just go off to the side. We're going to have another topic. You mentioned your pro audio line. Now, you have a line for gamers as well. I mean, a lot of musicians, like you said, use Twitch, use other social media, avid gamers. Some of them do soundtracks for games. So what sort of products do you have for them?
Yeah, we started getting heavily into gaming, I think 2018 when we launched Mobius, and that was a pretty groundbreaking headset. I mean, it still is, quite frankly. Planar magnetic, of course, which is, that's our bread and butter. That's the core of who we are. But it also, it has the Waves NX plugin essentially built into the headphones. So there's a gyroscope and accelerometer in the headphones that track your head at about 1,000 times per second. An
Wow.
8-channel sound card built into the headphones too. So essentially what you get with the Mobius is if you plug it in USB direct to a computer, you get 8 channels of audio, so the true surround sound PCM audio output from your source, routed as though it's actually coming from speakers in a circle around your head. And so when you turn your head, you can actually hear audio as though it's coming from those directions. So that's pretty fantastic. It's a true
So it's an immersive experience.
Exactly, yeah. And that's, whether you're looking for competitive advantage, because of course, when it comes to localizing sound, it really helps. Like if somebody's coming from behind you, well, if it's actually designed to sound like it's coming from a speaker in that direction, your brain's going to actually think it's coming from that direction much more than it would if you were just listening to a pair of stereo headphones that are just strapped onto your head like that. And there's a lot of technological things in there, like the HRTF algorithm that helps to spatialize the audio for you and stuff like that. But then beyond competitive advantage, it's just great to play RPGs on or whatever. I mean, if you're playing single player games, it's a great experience. And if you have a pair and you're playing Cyberpunk, try it. It's pretty fantastic for immersion.
Yeah, I've got several friends that are playing Cyberpunk now, and they're all over it. So I can imagine some headsets like that would just drive them over the edge.
Oh, 100%.
That's phenomenal. I mean, just the thought of a fully immersive audio experience is just phenomenal. I mean, without getting too far into the technical, because I don't want my head to explode.
Sure.
I mean, how do you do that? I mean, you just went off on this thing on me, and I'm just like, okay, tell me more.
Sure. So a couple layers. I think the base layer here is going to be our drivers. And as I mentioned, they're planar magnetic, and maybe a lot of the viewers won't maybe know what that is. So to just give a really basic, I'm not an expert myself, but a layman's explanation of planar technology. Contrast it with a dynamic driver where you have a cone with a coil and a magnet, and it's this whole dynamic driver construction, which is typical of most headphones. Planar is a completely different type of speaker. We use a diaphragm, as I mentioned earlier, that's thinner than a human hair, and then the magnets actually go around that diaphragm. And the voice coil actually gets etched onto the diaphragm itself. So that's actually what's, creating the magnetic field. And so you're getting, again, extremely accurate sound, really fast transient response. So let's say you're hearing a gunshot or something like that. You need to be able to have the diaphragm move very quickly and get the full iteration of that sound wave in order to accurately reproduce it. Mm-hmm. So if you're dealing with a typical dynamic driver, what you end up getting a lot of the time is a lot of distortion. I mean, even if it's not like in your ear, there is still distortion that is affecting the accuracy.
I would assume that there's a conflict in sound, because a really good video game will literally have, like in real life, a lot of things going on.
Yes.
So I would assume that in the headset, you get a lot of conflict between the sound waves and what's going on. And of course, the own things, things going on in your head, you're not catching all the sound. But it sounds like with what you're saying is that removes that part. It just creates a full immersive experience.
That's exactly right. So what you end up with let's say a dynamic driver, just generic dynamic driver, is different parts of that cone, that diaphragm, moving out of sync. And that creates the distortion. And that makes it harder to hear the separation in voices, which is what you're getting to. It's also something that's very relevant to audio production. If you're listening and fine-tuning a mix and you're trying to hear, really granular details, you want to make sure that the equipment you're listening on has the ability to create that separation in all the frequency ranges. Right. So yes, this does that. So again, in terms of being able to hear all the different sounds in a video game really clearly, there's really not going to be any other gaming headset outside of ones that we make that's going to get you that same level of detail and clarity and separation.
Wow, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine how this all came about. I mean, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's been a long process. I mean, okay, so I mentioned the patents, right? So there's a few things. The Uniforce voice coils that I mentioned, those help to more evenly distribute the magnetic flux across the entire diaphragm to help reduce that issue I just mentioned to you earlier, where you have different parts moving out of sync. So the Uniforce voice coil helps with that. You also need a lot of power to make sure you can get the diaphragm moving as fast as it needs to, which is where the fluxor magnets come in, by being able to create a magnetic circuit that's effectively double the power of a comparable circuit using the same number of magnets
Now,
is really powerful.
you said that this is a USB headset, plugs in USB.
Correct. So Mobius is, yes.
Right. But I would assume, I mean, the sound, I'm all flustered now. From what you're saying, there's an incredible amount of power going through that headset that would normally come from, say, a mixing board that's like a phantom power and everything else. I mean, it sounds like you're getting the most bang for your buck on this using a USB, but I've never heard of anybody else doing this. This sounds like a very unique structure that only you have.
Yeah, so the headphones have an amplifier on board actually, and I think the impedance on those diaphragms for the drivers for the Mobius is incredibly low, but still there's an amplifier on board, so you can get an incredible amount of volume. Another thing about our headphone technology is that you can generally push these things past the 120 dB without getting any audible distortion. So that's another thing. I mean, you can pretty much get to the point where you're maybe worried about your hearing before you're going to actually hear any distortion in those headphones. So yeah, in terms of the uniqueness of that product, I mean, absolutely. There had been other companies that had tried to develop something similar, but they just couldn't quite get it there. And we were very lucky because we were able to partner with Waves, who had been studying HRTFs and how do you create a spatialized listening environment from a pair of headphones. And they've been working on that for a long time. So we partnered with them and just basically implemented that into this headphone. And so we were able to get the whole thing off the ground relatively quickly. And it's been incredibly successful for us, and we're very proud of it. Of course, that's not the only gaming product. We also have something called the LCD GX. And that's more of our typical audiophile design. So if you look at it, that's more in alignment with what our other headphones tend to be. And that's just a pure stereo gaming headphone for audiophiles, basically. And then there's Penrose. And Penrose, I believe I mentioned before we started doing the call. And that's our wireless gaming headset that we launched last year. And that's, you were talking earlier about how do we come up with the ideas for our products and do we listen to our customers? Well, one of the biggest things we heard about with Mobius was, I really wish this were wireless. If this were wireless, and caveat, it does have Bluetooth, but true like 2.4 gigahertz wireless,
right?
Yep, then I would get it. And that was a big deal for a lot of people because that's just kind of typical, especially if you're playing on a console, right? Where you're far away, all that sort of thing. Right. So we really wanted to make sure that the next gaming headset we launched had 2.4 gigahertz wireless in it. So that's exactly what Penrose is. It's lossless, low latency, 2.4 gigahertz wireless. It also does have Bluetooth, so you can simultaneously connect to a mobile device, let's say chat on Discord on your phone, and get the audio signal from your wireless source, say your console or your PC, whatever it is.
It's fully compatible with all gaming systems.
Yes, so we've got two versions of that. There's Penrose and Penrose X. Penrose was designed specifically with PlayStation 5 in mind, and it is compatible with PC and Mac and previous generations of console. And then Penrose X is designed for Xbox Series X and S. So for users who are really interested in the top of the line gaming headset for Xbox, Penrose X would be the way to go. And then Penrose is sort of the catch-all outside of that. Other cool thing about it is we have a new microphone that we designed in consultation with Shure, actually, for that.
I gotta hear about this. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so, not super crazy complicated, just it's a cool new capsule. And again, we had help from the people over at Shure in the designing of this. So it's a high quality microphone, good for broadcasting. We use it ourselves. I use it. Not going to replace, like a standalone dedicated microphone if you really want to get, that into your streaming setup. But if you're getting started streaming or you don't have the budget for one of those more high priced microphones, I think it's a great option.
Now, is that compatible with things for, say, podcasters, people that are content creators using mobile media, et cetera?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I mean, we've pretty much covered the products that we talked about earlier and a couple things that I didn't know about, like the microphone. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up? I would say that there's going to be a lot of headphone companies out there saying, hey, our headphones are great for mixing and mastering or for gaming or whatever it is. I wasn't really a huge gearhead myself before I started working at Audeze. And there have been a few moments in my life, I am a musician. And when I've been looking for audio gear to use, where I've kind of had like this night and day type of experience,
I have a pair of Adams speakers on my desk right now, and that was one of those experiences where I spent an hour in a room listening to various speaker pairs arrayed in this Guitar Center, right? Just sort of listening carefully. Okay, there's a little bit of a difference here, a little bit of a difference here, but subtle. And then they turned these on, and that was it. So I had, that kind of experience, right? And it's all of a sudden going from not being really sure to having no doubt in my mind that these were the speakers for me.
Well, I'm the same way with drum equipment. There's certain drum equipment, because I'm a drummer. There's certain equipment I get, I won't use anything else. I won't use anything else. It's like I have Evans drum heads. That's the drum head for me, period.
Right. And that was the experience that I had when I heard our headphones for the first time. And obviously, I work for Audeze, so I'm not going to say bad things about the company, but it's the truth. I mean, they gave me a pair of eye signs when I first started working there, that those are the in-ears that we make. I never heard anything like it. It was absolutely stunning, and all of our products are that way. So what I would say, I guess, to your audience or whoever else it is that, I would certainly, I'm a skeptical person, right? So, I wouldn't blame anybody for being skeptical, but I am highly confident that anybody who is producing or looking for a tool to help them, like if they don't have an acoustically treated room, or if they just need an additional tool to help with fine tuning their mixes or a reference tool for mastering, our headphones really are the way to go. And if you don't believe me, check out the Audeze artists page. You'll see just name after name of incredible musicians and producers who use our products, and there's a reason for that. So
I would say what you're saying is quite believable, because I mean, I don't know really much about other manufacturing industries or other companies per se, but in the music world, music industry, people are very passionate about what they do. So they're passionate about who they work for. And I don't know anybody like yourself that would work for a company unless they had faith in that company, and wouldn't be a spokesman for that company unless they believed what they were talking about. So I would say to anybody watching this video, that's you. You wouldn't say it unless it's true. So I'm fully on board with this. So I look forward to hearing more about the company in the future, and let me know if anything new comes along the line. I'm sure to share it with our readers and our followers. And I want to thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. And this is Joseph Timmons for IndiePulse Music Magazine, and yet again, another successful Zoom video. No matter what I do, I can't make myself look good. I mean, I don't have the filters, nothing. And
that's okay. We're in it together.
Well, thank you very much. And everybody keep rocking in the free world. I'll catch you later.